Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Stephan Loerke. I'm the CEO of the WFA, and welcome to our webinar on better ad standards. And we're delighted to have you all online. Maybe before I introduce our webinar, I'd like to make a quick introduction of today's speakers, or rather today's speaker. Charles Cohen is with the law firm Venable in Washington, D.C. He's one of the key drivers and architects of the Coalition for Better Ads since its inception in September last year. And we're delighted to have Charles with us today, and he will be leading us through the work which the coalition has delivered so far, and talk in particular about the better ad standards as they have been published recently. You will also see Axel Debris is the public affairs manager in the WFA team, who is in charge of the Adblocking dossier. Let me maybe just say a word about WFA for those of you who may not be yet that familiar with our organization. WFA is the global organization representing brand owners. We have in our membership 90 of the world's largest brands, Red Bull, Adidas, Nike, Mercedes-Benz, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and many more. And we have 60 national advertiser associations in membership, in the US, ISBA in the UK, AFAN in Portugal, ANZA in New Zealand, CNA in China, and many more. Before I hand over to Chuck, I'd like to just say a few words in terms of what the objective is of today's webinar. We aim over the next 30 minutes to brief you on the Coalition for Better Ads and what it has achieved so far. You may remember that this initiative was announced in September last year at the Mexico in Cologne, and it's an initiative which is global. It seeks to be putting in place better ad standards at a global scale. It brings together all the major actors of the digital advertising ecosystem, and it has a pretty ambitious goal, which is essentially to be improving the digital advertising experience, which today is perceived to be frustrating by many people around the world. Now, the coalition has made some remarkable progress since its inception in September. You will have probably picked up that the coalition announced in May initial better ad standards for desktop and mobile for North America and Europe, so a very significant first step. And I will let Chuck explain this in more detail. But that's now enough from me. Let me at this stage now hand over to Chuck, who's in DC, and who will lead us through the main achievements of the coalition so far. Chuck, over to you.
Thank you, Stephan, and thank you to the World Federation of Advertisers, who has been involved in this project, an initiative for industry from the very beginning. And I want to second what Stephan had said in terms of this being a global effort from its beginning. There has been a recognition that this is an issue that is faced across different regional markets, and a common challenge for those of us in industry who want to improve the consumer experience with digital advertising. And so we are incredibly grateful to have had the involvement of not just the World Federation of Advertiser national members, but also representatives of the content publishers, of the advertising technology providers, really the whole ecosystem, so that we can work together to implement standards that make a difference for the consumer experience. I'm showing on my slides here some recent data from PageFair, which points to the global nature of the problem. These are charts showing the growth of desktop and mobile web adoption of ad blocker technology. This can occur both in the context of extensions to browsers or customized browsers for desktop and for web. But clearly the trend has been an alarming growth in consumer adoption of ad blockers, and as an indication of the dissatisfaction with certain aspects of the current advertising experience. And just to emphasize, we are, as the coalition, not just thinking about the desktop issues where certainly in North American markets and European markets that this is most prevalent. We recognize that the mobile future is at risk when we see data such as we have seen in Asia Pacific from certain markets where there is very fast adoption of mobile ad blocking. And so to emphasize again, we are attempting to approach this with a vision that goes across regions and across the different digital environments where consumers may receive advertising to support the services they like, but also need to have a reason not to use ad blocking technology. And so the coalition's goal has been to develop standards that work across different regions that essentially define better ad standards. And really what we mean by that is that we're defining really the least preferred, the experiences that are most disliked. The goal is not to really to limit the innovation and ideas for new advertising experiences, but it certainly is to capture and come up with a defined data-driven basis to identify the experiences that exist and that we know are not what consumers want. And with the adoption of the standards, the goal is to have the various parts of the ecosystem work together to ensure that those kinds of experiences that are disliked and that fall beneath these standards aren't delivered. We have tremendous participation from the not only from major global marketers, from trade groups representing and associations representing many dozens of countries, but also major publishers in certain markets. Our goal, obviously, is to increase participation, but either directly in the coalition, or if you choose, you can participate through your international trade groups. We have many dozens of affiliates, national level affiliates to our program from the World Federation of Advertisers, but we also have for those companies and entities that want to participate directly in the standards process, the opportunity to participate directly. As I mentioned, the idea is to have a common and agreed upon methodology that really listens to the voice of the consumer. We want to have, and we have adopted, a methodology that is driven by data that is based on a consumer's actual experience with certain types of advertising formats. And it's not just based on their opinion, their abstract opinion of particular formats that they may see. As I mentioned, it's also based on provable and data at scale. And also we have a global focus and a recognition that the methodology must work across regional markets. It must be able to be translated so that it can, regional measures, regional differences or similarities can be captured using the same methodology and measured over time. So our methodology, and I'll talk in a second about the better ads, the initial standards for desktop and mobile web, each is developed for a particular digital environment. I've identified desktop web and mobile web, but we also plan to deal with other important digital environments. We are now just beginning our discussion of in-stream videos, and in particular short-form video, that is video that's less than 10 minutes in content, and the pre-roll or other types of video advertising that go around those particular types of advertisements. So I will discuss briefly the methodology used for testing to support the findings in our Better Ad standards. All of this is published in some detail on our website, which is betterads.org. And so you can read at your leisure the underlying research papers and the data results. But in summary, this is just an example of a mobile ad experiences as it is tested. The object is to have the consumer actually engage with a piece of content, and in that in the course of that engagement to see a particular type of ad format. This type of approach in which the consumer then rates their opinion, whether their satisfaction or their annoyance with the particular ad format, is extensible and allows for dozens of different types of ad formats to be tested for a mobile or for desktop. And so it allows for the collection of data over time. And what this also does, it can support other features of the experience, such as delay or latency in delivery of the ad or the content page. What the consumer does, the respondent to the survey not only gives data about their opinion of the particular ad experience that they receive, but also they comparatively rate other ad experiences that they receive in the test environment, and such that this allows, over the course of many thousands of different test respondents, to build a ranking of for dozens of different experiences. And what I'm showing you here is the rankings that support that are behind the initial standards. On the left, you see the desktop rankings for approximately 55 different ad experiences, which are ad formats or other variations in ad delivery types. And then on the right, mobile, there's 49 different experiences there. And obviously, it's impossible to read this on my slide, but you can read this further on the website. The testing that involved our initial standards included approximately 25,000 respondents in North America and also in Europe. I think it's about 14,000 in the North America and 11,000 in the European market. And the key takeaway from this ranking is that we have performed additional statistical correlation to determine not only what are the worst ranked or least preferred experiences for each digital environment, but also which of these are most closely correlated with the consumer likelihood to install and use ad blockers. And this is what defines the Better Ad standards, are the ad experiences that have both of these characteristics, that are not only the lowest ranked in terms of consumer preference and have the highest degree of annoyance, but also have that likelihood to use ad blockers proven on a statistical basis. And as a result of this, of the data that's been analyzed, we also use a methodology that allows for statistical correlation between different countries and regional markets. And we're able to measure whether there is a degree of agreement among consumers in different markets where they agree that they don't like certain formats. And this sounds in a certain way obvious, but it is important, we believe, to have a shared data-driven basis on which we all agree on how to define the least preferred ad experiences, particularly those that are disliked across different regional markets and really on a global basis. And so earlier this year, the coalition announced initial Better Ad standards for the two digital environments that I mentioned, one of which is the desktop web and the other is the mobile web. And again, and these were based upon statistical correlation between preferences in those two regional markets. There was a single set of standards for desktop and also for mobile webs that were announced. You can study these more, but I will review them briefly. These are the standards. These are the ad experiences that fall beneath the initial standard for desktop, which are these are pop-ups both with or without countdown, prestitial ads with a countdown, autoplay video ads with sound, and large sticky ads that are taking up more than 30% of the screen. For the mobile web, there are 8 types of ads that fell beneath the better ad standard, as the initial standard as defined for North America and for Europe. Pop-up ads with or without countdowns, prestitial ads with or without countdowns, ad density for the mobile screen of greater than 30%, flashing animated ads, autoplay video ads with sound, again, postitial ads with countdown, full screen scroll over ads, and large sticky ads. I think you can see, and from your own experience, and certainly from other testing that's been done certainly by many of your organizations, this is consistent with those findings, and also I think consistent with the experience of users who generally dislike having ad formats that obstruct their view of their contents, that are interruptive, and that make it difficult for the user to exercise control. So with the release of these initial standards, the coalition with our member and associations like the World Federation of Advertisers has been working now, as we're doing today, to spread the word and to build awareness of the standards and how they can be used to improve the consumer ad experience. And to go back to a point I made at the beginning, we think it's vital that advertisers, for example, have this information as they design and consider how they will build out to execute on an idea, to have this in mind from the beginning of the ideation process for a campaign. Publishers obviously can use these standards to decide how to present ads on their platforms for their audiences. Ad technology companies can use these in terms of figuring out which ad experiences they will or won't support. And finally, we have always had the vision that these types of standards would enable a better degree of measurement of essentially those publishers and other entities that are using the consumer standards that consumers, the ad standards that consumers prefer. And so this is a joint effort where we are working together to build education. So we're sharing this information with our key stakeholders and encouraging all of you to use them both within your associations and within your companies to share the information and to begin to build awareness as the ads go into the pipeline of what it is, certainly as we now have data that shows what is not preferred by consumers in the North American and European market. Now, of course, and as many of you are aware, since the announcement of the standards, there has been a lot of discussion about how companies will implement the standards. As it turns out, Google has announced that it plans to employ the Better Ad standards in connection with its Chrome product and have announced an intention to use it for possible filtering purposes at some point in the near future. But that's not the only company that's thinking about this or even thinking about the general issue of providing a better ads experience. Obviously, some of you are aware that Safari has talked about building features that limit certain types of ads into the next generation of Safari. So from the coalition perspective, our goal has been to really extend our work not only to the issuance of standards, but also to the development of a framework that will provide guidance to companies that are using these standards to make a difference for the consumer. So we are expanding our work plan to include the development of principles to assist companies that are implementing these standards and technologies, like browsers, and also to provide within those principles what kinds of approach, the guidance on the approach that industry supports. For example, an idea of how to best achieve proportionality in enforcement and to only do what is technologically necessary to accomplish the implementation. Secondly, we have learned since putting out the initial standards that there is a great appetite for guidance on interpretation of the standards and for new experiences or for help in education, helping to define what is in or out of scope for the standards as they were defined. Obviously, no test methodology can think of every scenario. That there are certainly scenarios in which the standards did not consider a particular type of advertising, and so we need to provide help in the form of guidance to the marketplace about which things are still are really outside the scope of where these standards sit, and to identify areas where maybe new testing is required or not. Finally, we also now realize, based upon feedback from our members, that we need to have an opportunity for entities and companies in the marketplace to make a certification that they are following the Better Ad standards. And so we are now just beginning to evaluate how there might be a program and a possible seal that could signify to other companies and also to consumers that a publisher or an advertising entity has committed to follow these standards to make the consumer experience better. And lastly, we want to build a program in which, when a company makes that kind of commitment, that this commitment is recognized by technologies, applications that are implementing or scoring in connection with the Better Ad standards. So in the future, in the near term and longer term, we will be focused on 4 different workflows, and our internal structure reflects this. We will be continuing to build as much education and awareness in industry, and also providing interpretive guidance in order to achieve the maximum degree of awareness of these data. In terms of the research and the standards themselves, obviously we only have finished 2 markets. A key priority is to continue research for the desktop and mobile web in other regional markets outside and in other vitally important markets, Asia Pacific, Latin America. We are also committed, as I mentioned, short-form video is an important advertising format, and one in which the coalition is now studying the possible methodology that could be used to measure consumer preferences. And as I just mentioned, we have a goal to focus on technology implementation and principles that go around that. And finally, accountability. We recognize that not only will there be a need for certification if companies want to make that, but possibly also a mechanism for resolving disputes that arise over interpretation. So we are very grateful to have the support of the WFA and so many international entities. We are very much interested in your feedback, and hope to answer questions today or offline after that. Thank you. And this is our website if you want to inquire about membership.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Thank you very much for this very succinct and clear presentation. We have a few questions which were asked by participants during the presentation. One or two for you here, Chuck. One is, when will you be looking, when is the Coalition for Better Ads going to look at other regions? Question.
This is something in terms of our roadmap. We have been looking at the sort of the order of regions we consider to be most in terms of our resources that make the most difference. Obviously, they're very important markets. Asia Pacific is particularly large, so we have not made a full determination. We do not test every single country for obvious reasons. There has to be some rule where we essentially use an approximation for a particular region based upon the right kinds of population numbers. But one question too is whether we need to move more quickly on short-form video so that we improve that experience, or is desktop more important in the short term? And that's actually something the coalition is discussing right now.
Another question for you, I think, Chuck. Will the coalition be looking into ad clutter and frequency capping?
And I think whoever asked that question might take a look at the formats, look at in some of the detail. You can actually click links in the appendix to the papers that are published on the site. You can actually go and see what was tested. I think ad clutter may have been part of the test in terms of ad density. Frequency capping, I don't, it's not clear to me how that would be tested in terms of as a format. It's more that's more an experience, an ad delivery experience. It's an interesting question. Certainly, be happy to follow up on that, particularly if in light of review of the methodology to see if it's not something we've already covered.
Thank you, Chuck. And two questions here, which I'm happy to respond to. One is, how can I get involved as a brand owner? And I think to Chuck's point, gold brand owners can actually get involved in the coalition. And Chuck, in his last slide, includes a hyperlink to the website. So it's still an open invitation for gold brand owners to be joining the coalition. There's also actually in the task force which Axel is managing here, which is bring together members, national stations, and brand owners which are keen to follow very closely the work of the coalition, and so there's a way also of getting involved in that WCA task force. And then I see a second one which I think I'm probably well placed to respond to, which is I want to use these standards. Is there a best practice you can share? There are two things here. One is we're going to be sharing in an email with the link to the webinar the technical standards which Chuck talked about. And there is work ongoing in the coalition in terms of interpretation of those standards to be making sure that there is consistency in the way they are understood by the different stakeholders. There's also a second facet, a second aspect to it, which is how are brand owners designing processes to make sure that those standards are fully incorporated in the ideation process. So at the very beginning of the marketing campaign process, make sure that all the stakeholders and all the partners are properly factoring those standards into the thinking. And here we're actually starting to have conversations with individual brand owners to make sure that we can share best practices in terms of how those processes can look like in order to be supporting our members in implementing those standards. That is actually still ongoing work, but certainly something which we will be prioritizing in the coming months. I think we've covered all the questions which we received during the webinar. please feel free to get in touch with, I can see that we've got actually a last question which just came in. Is there a list of acceptable ads, the list of better ads standards available? The answer is yes, on the Coalition for Better Ads Standards website. So what I was saying is anyone who has additional questions and would like to deepen any of the aspects which were touched upon in our webinar today, please feel free to get in touch with Axel Debris. You see his email address and even his picture on the slide. He's going to be happy to talk to you about that. And let me conclude by thanking Chuck for joining us today and for presenting the very meaningful progress of the coalition so far. And thank you to all of you for having participated in today's webinar. Goodbye.